Good afternoon and welcome to the regular council meeting for September 8th, 2025, here in the council chambers at 1394 Pine Avenue. Also available live on Zoom, and our meetings are open to the public and posted on the city YouTube channel. So first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there someone to make that motion? Thank you. A seconder, and thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. Now I need a resolution to resolve into the committee of the whole, please. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. So we do have some departmental verbal updates today, and the first one that we have is Sergeant Mike Wasenowicz from the emergency services update. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, thank you for having me. So for the emergency services update, summer's come to an end. Summer brings on unique challenges. Staffing, because people want holidays, but our staffing numbers have vastly improved. So this summer, we didn't need much extra help to carry our schedule all the way through. There is the weekends tend to fluctuate on how busy they are. This weekend was not that many calls, 50 or so calls, whereas the weekend before was over 100 and something on the long weekend. It just depends on what people are doing, if they're staying in town, what the weather's like, if there's smoke. So the summer overall though, was very successful. We're planning for back to school. Officers will be out in school zones enforcing that. I did put out a media release reminding people about the school zones, and we do want the public to call if they're notice speeding. We do have our problematic areas like outside the Warfield School on the highway, because it's a highway that people tend to zip through there. But in the large part, all in all, most people are compliant. Going into the future, they did re-implement the staff sergeant's position. So our detachment traditionally had a staff sergeant, 3 corporals, 15 general duty constables, 2 crime reduction unit members, and a GIS member. The crew members, the crime reduction unit is not reattached yet, but it allegedly is coming. It just takes a while with the RCMP and our what we call the Organ Classification Division. So we do expect those 2 people to come back. It'll be a priority to staff them. And they're the ones who target prolific offenders, drug trafficking, your crimes that require a lot more time and surveillance and energy. That's very difficult for uniform officers, because we do need some covert ability plus specialized techniques, time to write warrants. But that being said, we did do a unusually large bus full of guns up in Warfield. That was the main supplier, one of the main suppliers of drugs and weapons to the area. So he's currently in jail and our case is going forward. So we hope to continue that. And I imagine in the future, our GIS unit and crime reduction unit, making 3 plainclothes members all work together, and that'll be a fairly effective unit for our area. Since the trail crime reduction unit is funded by the municipality, they'll operate mainly within trail unless there's a target connected to trail outside the area. Far as my position, it'll just still stay as a sergeant, and there's more information coming about the staffing objectives down the road, but nothing's taken place. It's us, Castlegar and Nelson, who are all getting their ranking officer back after deamalgamation of the entire West Kootenay. So it's been a long time coming, but there is progress being made. As far as equipment, people, everything's going well. We have 2 members due back to work in the next few weeks to few months, just recovering from injuries and things like that. And we have our recruit has over 6 months service. He's graduated off his recruit field training, and he's a full-fledged officer now operating on his own. So things are going well that way. It's nice because it's been many years since we've had almost a full crew, and yeah, it's going well. We're working to look to hire a new victim services program manager, but that program's operated by the RDKB, and they'll be heavily involved in that hiring. Yeah, and any questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Benson.
Thank you through the chair. A couple of meetings ago, you talked about the auxiliary force potentially coming back. Is there any update on that?
Yes, so the auxiliary program is up and running. However, the RCMP likes to build the car as it drives it. So we started just with the frame and the steering wheel, and it's kind of creating out of control right now. However, they have some solutions coming.
Okay.
So what the issue is, bigger detachment, the program works better because they have the resources to dedicate a team to train auxiliary officers. And the training, it's quite intense. It's like becoming a police officer, like because you are. There's different tiers of volunteers. So we do have Darcy Niblo in the works. He's done a lot of his academic work. But we have to train him on his police defense tactics. Currently, we don't have an instructor to do that for him because it's intensive. And there's some program updates coming. So basically, once it implemented, the feedback from the provinces was some of the training was outdated compared to, because they usually prepare this training, complete the course, time to get approvals and it rolls out, it's outdated. So there's some updates coming as well as a method to train people on their use of force. But we anticipate in the next year or so, we can get Darcy Nibble up and running as a full auxiliary, and he'll work with paired at all times with an officer. And if there's tiers 1 to 3, I think tier 3 is they basically operate like an assistant police officer, so they can go to calls, they can participate in arrests, things like that. That's what we anticipate. Once we figure that out, like Darcy's fully trained, the process is smoothed out, we're going to set up an active recruiting campaign. And I think we can hire up to 7. You can be a third of dirty captain.
Through the chair. So you're saying they re-implemented the staff sergeant position?
Yes.
What is the difference between that and what you do?
Well,
Sorry.
you take, okay, so back in the day, cause I worked, the staff sergeant position did this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Whereas the sergeants did an operational supervision. That's what my Corporal James Splinter
Right.
does. Where like we call it the new queue. So every new file that comes in, he'll review it and then send it to the supervising corporal to follow up with, or back to the officer for further investigation. He does both jobs. So basically, we blended or we split a lot of the duties of the missing sergeant. So like I do a lot of the admin stuff, like annual performance plan, stats, things like that. So it was really, we lost out on a member or an officer. When it was regionalized, a lot of our duties were taken to Nelson, like finance. So we didn't have to worry about that. It actually worked okay. But when the inspector in charge, like it was very hard in a territory our big with that many people to properly manage it, and that inspector to meet with all mayors and councils and satisfy it. They just basically de-amalgamized and returned all these duties back to us. So it's been about 4 years that we've had our duties returned to us. So we've just been managing. I'm lucky that I have Corporal Splinter because he'll make the transition very easy, but again, how that looks, I'm not entirely sure right now.
You'll still do the media releases, so
Yes, as long as I'm there,
I'd like to hear close.
yeah. Yes, likely I'll have lots of time to do that.
Is there any other questions? Councilor Cashel.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you, Sergeant. Just some clarity on who's working right now. How many officers are available to take calls that are on active duty presently at the detachment?
Full active duty is 12 officers.
Can I just interrupt and tell, are they, what the ranks? Are they mostly constables?
Well, I'm just starting with constables.
Okay, sorry.
12 general duty constables and 1 general investigative section constable. Then we have 2 what we consider light duty, so they do operational work. Just for various reasons, they are just recovered, like sometimes recovering from an injury, sometimes returning to work after an absence. They're doing operational duties, but stay within the detachment. But sometimes that's a bit of a benefit, or sorry, it can be a huge benefit to people working on the road, because they do take on a number of administrative tasks on investigations, freeing those officers up to respond. So rather than someone come back to the office to investigate, let's say an assault that occurred on the weekend that doesn't require an operational response, that'll be sent to the office and we'll just take statements and we'll conduct the investigation from the office. And there's one, officer currently off sick, but we believe she's returning, by Christmas.
So just to reiterate, you have 12 general duty officers, are those all constables?
Yes,
And you have the GIS constable, is that person available to actually leave the office, or are they a light duty person as well?
no, they're full duties, and there's two general duty constables currently on light duties.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to focus on the members that are available to actually take calls and sort of do proactive policing. So right now we're at 12, and how many supervisors then are on active duty right now?
3.
So we have 15 uniformed officers that are available to take calls and participate in proactive policing. Is that a safe assessment?
I would say 14,
Okay,
2 that are on light duties. So making the 12 operational, see out in the community and marked vehicles. Then you have the 1 GIS member who does more investigative work,
Yeah.
but does respond if required in emergencies. And then pending 2 crime reduction unit members who do focus on hotspots and prolific
and
offenders.
they're not here yet, though, the crime reduction.
They're coming,
They're
yes.
coming at some point.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about 20 just through the chair.
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody else had a question before I let you,
Be nice to have
Continue
continuity
it.
of questioning though, just to kind of keep it kind of flowing. I think it's helpful to be able to just kind of, you know,
okay, go ahead. Counselor
that's
Crawford.
I don't want to steal the show, and I'm sure there should be
Mhm.
lots of time for others to ask. These are, to me, I think they're important questions, and I think that the people that elected me want me to ask these questions. So I'm doing my job, and I would appreciate that opportunity to be able to continue doing that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Sergeant. So anyway, so there's 22 members in total, from my tally, that are on strength, and we have 14 that are actively able to do the full job.
12.
Okay, 12. So we're at,
12 general duty and then 1 GIS
Okay.
constable.
okay, thank you. Now, out of that 12, how many are municipal and how many are provincial? Do you know the ratios? on that?
Yeah, it is 9 are provincial, 13 are municipal, and that includes 2 corporals are provincial, 1 corporal's municipal, I'm municipal, and then the constables, whatever that breaks down to. But basically, you had 8 constables provincially joining the Greater Trail Detachment. So I think you're left with 7 municipal constables plus a GIS and then 2 crew members, so you probably end up with 10 municipal members.
Okay, thank you. And if I can maybe shift over to another line of questioning through the chair.
Is it on the same subject or?
It's on policing and
Okay.
on public safety and.
Okay,
that
I'm
type
just
of nature.
wondering if any other council members have any questions before we change the subject.
I'm, through the chair, I'm happy to just wait till Council Cashwell's done his train of thought, and then I've got some questions for me too, but I'll wait for him to finish his, because it might bring some other thoughts to mind.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you, through the chair. So, Sergeant, what is your assessment on the open drug use concerns that have been brought forward to myself and council recently in public spaces? So the question is basically, what is your assessment on open drug use in public spaces and trail?
Currently, it's the same issue faced by all communities. Each community has a unhoused population. Trail seems to collect unhoused people from the greater area, because most of the services are in trail. That being said, a very high percentage of policing occurs within the trail boundaries versus the outlying areas, because the outlying areas don't have as many issues. It's been challenging. The addition of the shelter has greatly reduced street population and open drug use. Because 26 people are now housed and they do have a supervised drug use site at the shelter. We counted, I think the highest point was 80 or so unhoused who access services temporary or permanently through the old shelter through the alley, and now a number provided by Bobby Briscoe, who keeps very good track of the number of people on the street, was 35. So that's pretty decent, like less than half. It is also summer. Our numbers are always higher in summer because people tend to visit warmer climates, hang out with their friends, it's they, again, homeless people, even though the homeless still go on vacation and still visit their friends in other towns. So we're probably at our high, and then it'll drop off as people seek shelter and more permanent locations over the winter. But as we're going, I think trail has and I will say this again in the end, a very mild issue compared to most communities. If you do any type of traveling, it's still an issue. However, we don't have the same level of violence or the same density as a lot of other cities.
So just to recap to the chair, your assessment is that Trail has a very mild issue compared to other communities on open drug use.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can you describe the current enforcement policy of your detachment regarding open drug use in public spaces in Trail?
Yeah, well, the enforcement policy, there's criminal code, the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. So drugs are mainly prior to the exemption handled through section 4.1, which is possession, 4 sub 1. And 5 sub 1 and 5 sub 2, which is trafficking, possession for the purpose of traffic. Now the latter remain illegal, but possessions 2.5 grams and under is decriminalized, so it's not legal. However, certain quantities are allowed, small quantities for personal use are allowed. The public policy, which the RCMP is, we don't choose policies, and we don't really comment on it. We enforce the law. So the BC government in 2023, January 1st, implemented the section 56 exemption, which is a legal exemption. It allows for this possession, but also did some amendments through the process that gave restrictions on it. But as the police, we have to follow a stepwise procedure. So mostly what we're talking about, we're not talking like impaired driving stolen, trafficking stolen. Really, what this law seems to protect, or at least consider, let's say, is the unhoused using drugs. Now, we have the procedure we use if we're called to deal with someone who's using drugs. And I'm going to use very specific examples because each officer has their own discretion. Now, if someone's committing an illegal act, criminal act, that's different. If they happen to be using drugs, that's treated very different. If someone's using drugs in a public space, let's say a park, we have to follow the procedure where we offer them health services, treatment, information. Let's say like that specifically, sitting on a bench using drugs, we have to offer them some type of help that are referrals. We have to consider whether or not we bring our community nurse to the site if they wish to seek treatment. Or want some additional help, and that's been working well. I suspect our stats are dropping because we've been utilizing a nurse that specializes in addiction services. Not only will he come out and talk to people, he will conduct follow-ups, especially with mental health and drug addictions, and also visit our cell block when someone's in there and let's say they haven't had their medication or touch base with health services. So that's been working well. So let's say someone refuses all of that. Then we can ask them to leave. Generally, 99% of compliance. Very rarely will someone who's using drugs not leave if they're able to. If they're intoxicated beyond ability to take care of themselves, we will arrest them and place them in cells until they're sober. And that happens on a pretty consistent basis. The other thing we have to consider, normally when we show up and someone's been using drugs, normally they're passed out, so it's delivery of Narcan and followed up with EHS or health services for a medical check before they leave. If they decline, they don't have to submit to any type of examination, or they can be brought up to the hospital for one. So if someone has used, let's say fentanyl, because that's most of the drugs on the street are either fentanyl or mixed with fentanyl. Generally, the Narcan we deliver neutralizes the effect, so they are now sober. So they can't be placed under arrest for being intoxicated. It's more about whether or not they should be on their own and developing a plan with them to have someone monitor them in case they pass out again. Cause that can happen. You can get a second wave and pass out again and possibly die. And we just had a week ago, we've had one of our longstanding street people die from overdose. So this happens, I think there's 3 a day now in BC. So let's say nurse comes, no cooperation, still high, no Narcan delivered, then we can consider the arrest. If we locate drugs on them, depending on the circumstance, some of the times we have to return the drugs to them. Like that's a pretty common policy. And if we don't return the drugs to them, there has to be some accounting for the reason why. Rarely do we come across this situation. So an arrest can be made, but simply arresting people in the park for using drugs is not the first step. It's not supported by the legislation if you read it. The other issue is that this legislation seems to be revolved around the unhoused and sheltering in place. And if you're sheltering in place and unhoused, you're allowed to use drugs. Now, that's a very hard definition for us to deal with. Because if you're homeless, anywhere you are, you're sheltered in place, and that's been brought up internally. We believe that that definition makes this almost unenforceable. And it's also up to each definition. So we're not going to arrest our way out of this issue. It's a social issue. And what we suggest is our partnership with our mental health nurse in the healthcare system seems to be working. An opioid or in a supervised drug use site may be appropriate. Again, I'm not talking about funding or when this happens. I'm just saying communities that have that, users tend to congregate there, use drugs, get monitored. What you save is a response by every time, police first to check to make sure the scene is safe. And we just had an incident outside of 7-Eleven where fire got there ahead of us, which is typical to deal with somebody who's in medical distress. And 2 men started fighting, one pulled out a knife. And we're having a meeting about that tomorrow, just because of the situation. I think we're gonna recommend that fire does not attend scenes until the police clear it first, like ambulance. So those are the types of situations where if you had an opioid use site, safe use sites, or whatever you wanna call it, you wouldn't have the police, fire, and ambulance responding multiple times a day to people down. As another example, last week, after coffee in our morning meeting, I went for a drive and a female had almost succumbed on the stairs. She's 16 by the funeral home. But every morning, myself and other officers do our rounds to check. Before I came here, I did my rounds to check to see if anybody's laying on the ground. And I found, again, a number of people like that. So it's a very challenging situation. You gotta remember, we're in an opioid crisis due to fentanyl. It won't last forever. The rate of people are dying, I think it's gonna end a lot quicker than other drug crises. But it's a very nuanced approach. And we probably do need some more support services, but we do have a lot. The other thing to consider is that when people use drugs in an open area or a site, it has to be determined dangerous. Now, someone's gonna tell me, oh, all drug use is dangerous. It's not. Marijuana use, it's not dangerous. When somebody's just there smoking a joint by themselves. So you consider other drug use, it's not necessarily dangerous. It is concerning, it's disturbing, people don't like it, but we do follow up on all calls, and generally there is a more positive result in dealing with it. But we do have to consider our nuanced response, our role in this, and the fact that the government has decided a hammer is not being used on the drug population anymore. It's more of a scalpel. And we're trying to follow suit. So it's been very challenging. The exemption comes up for renewal on the 2026, January 1st. I expect maybe some further modifications, but I don't expect it to be dropped.
Thank you. Just one more question, but I would like to be on record to say that I disagree with your assessment. The trail is a very mild issue, and I think we can address that further on down the road. But that being said, last question is, what kind of support or direction would you need from city council to, I don't even know why I'm asking this at this point, to increase enforcement, a police presence downtown, proactive policing, to address concerns of open drug use so that we can claim our parks back. And I understand what you're saying, Sergeant Sinowich, about, unhoused, they have no place to go. And yes, well, I'm a strong advocate for treatment, recovery houses, supportive housing, that's been on my radar and on my preaching notes ever since I got elected. But in the interim, is trying to find a balance, and that means the police, CDS, all partners, Interior Health, we all need to get involved to create a balance, because I think what we're facing here through the chair is a new normal, and this is what people are bringing this to me. The new normal is active, persistent, daily drug use that I've seen, that I've witnessed, that reports are coming into us. So that's why I disagree with your assessment of it being very mild, and I'd just like to know what kind of support or direction we can give you, I can give you personally as a city councillor to increase enforcement in the downtown area, particularly on open drug use. Thank you. That's all my questions, Chair.
Just that majority of the policing is actually in the downtown core with daily patrols, foot patrols, proactively managing drug use, responding to like a dozen calls a day about drug use, sometimes all about the same person. It still doesn't change the issue. I think when I say a mild issue, we've hit a hard wall with the effectiveness of the tools we have right now. The mild issue is the fact that this is not in comparison to some bigger cities, and I'm hesitate to name other places, but seen much worse. I've seen much more violence. We're not in the general Okanagan or the lower mainland where violence and drug use and rival drug dealers are also shooting and killing people and bodies are showing up all over the place. Like, we don't have that issue as much. We do have a very sick population with mental health and drug addiction, as well as poverty, housing issues. So if you want to reduce it, you can increase housing, you can apply for a supervised use site. And we're not talking about reducing drug use, more about reducing the visibility. If you want to reduce drug use, your guess is as good as mine. Like treatment beds, local treatment beds probably will help, but as of this morning, one of our offenders who were in drug treatment, we just got to notice that he absconded. So you have to remember that happens all the time. Even when you get successful getting some of the treatment, they abscond because it's too hard. And we're dealing with a very certain population that is very incredibly difficult to deal with and very unpleasant. And we actually are having conversations with them. If you leave garbage everywhere, if you do this behavior, that behavior, this is why people don't like you, and you get identified, and this is why you have such a hard time. Those kind of conversations do help because it does modify behavior, but we've been taking a different approach. And one of my corporals just had a conversation with somebody by the 7-Eleven who's making a mess. But then there was another person there who regularly cleans up after everybody because they don't want that reputation. So sometimes it works, but we're talking mild issue that I think if the proper or additional things like extra housing, supervised site, will help reduce the visibility. I don't think extra enforcement, again, I don't think we can do any more enforcement than we already are. I think we've exhausted the capacity of the law to deal with this particular issue under these particular laws and exemptions. If you want more police officers, that may create more presence. But I do think our crime reduction unit, we should wait till our crime reduction unit implements, because that will make a significant difference on prolific offenders in our community who breach or break the law again, because they will focus on that. So if you have 100 prolific offenders, repeat offenders, and those are on a list dealing with the crime reduction units, and they make sure they're at home every night, they're following all their conditions, and most of them don't at some point and get breached and brought into custody. Sometimes they end up in jail, and reduces the overall amount of offenders. So I think there's more to worry about than homeless people using drugs. It's a small part. If we're going to focus all our resources on that, I don't think it's very effective. I do think it is effective, just depending on who the person is and which category they fall into, focusing on those. You have to remember, there's people down there who use drugs, who clean up after themselves, who are homeless. But they're not people we worry about because they really don't do much besides use drugs. Whereas you may come across somebody who's sober, well regarded as a house is actually a drug dealer that we have to go after. So I think that the homeless people take the brunt of this is what's wrong in society, where it's actually much cheaper. And drug use is not limited to people on the street, it's actually all through society, every strata, and you're only seeing the worst of the worst. And I find that some people tend to focus on homeless people as a problem. Trail's still growing. We still have more businesses here downtown than I've seen before. I'm talking to really great people who have either come here from Canada or immigrated. They're setting up shop. I do think we have a lot of potential. I don't really, when I say a mild problem, it's mild. I think it's fixable. That's why. If we had a hardcore problem and people were shooting each other in the streets, I came from Vernon where there was people being shot literally in the street. I dealt with that for 5 years of the Project Epican, which involved a Greek, very violent gang. You don't have the same level here. We do have incidents, but not the consistent level. Like we had many murders, 8 murders within 14-month period in a small town. Here, we're not getting that same level. The whole Kootenays is like that due to population density, but also we have a lot of services here that service the homeless population, drugs, mental health. So I do think we have the capability with current resources to improve things, but it's just how we do that. Sometimes I understand City of Trails probably not directly responsible for funding an opioid use site, but maybe the federal government will support one if a location can be found, but trying to find a location for anything here involving the homeless, you guys know, it's impossible. Unless it's floating down the river towards the States.
Councillor Hanson.
Thank you for that, Sergeant Sandwich. Just through the chair, regarding the Warfield bus that was there, just a breakdown for us, regarding hours, the stuff that we pay for, overtime, et cetera. How much is coming out of our budget and how much is coming out of provincial for something like that? Just for perspective.
For the, Collins, got a good handle on this, but 70-30 split, so, you guys pay 70 and the province pays 30. The smaller communities do kick in, some money. My outfit, we have a new inspector, Inspector Dixon, she's asking for cost services agreement. I think the RCMP is looking at the funding structures for all communities to determine if everyone's paying their fair share, so that might be something this council wants to discuss. And maybe bring to Colin for some information about how everything's being broken down. So there's an up and a downside. Every year the last 7 years, we've been under budget, mostly due to resource shortages. However, those costs associated to the emergency response team sometimes are covered by the province, sometimes are covered by us, sometimes are pooled. What the air team in particular, I think their pool costs, travel costs are pooled. So when you look overall, yes, that might have cost a lot of money, but we're still under budget. So when we look at it as a policing perspective, depending on how it's broken down, it's expensive, but it was worth it. However, overall, we're still under budget and we probably took 50 guns off the street. And got a particularly nasty person out of our community from that.
Sorry, I just have 2 small follow-up questions. So you mentioned that the crew is, we're waiting for 2 more to come to us, but I understood that once after UBSIM last year that we ended up getting crew because it was implemented back in March before the bust happened in Glen Mary, because there was credit to be given to the crew because of that. So now has that crew left and now we're waiting for 2 new people, or what has happened with the one that we had that now we're waiting for 2?
So with a, let's say, an asterisk. So the positions exist, but they exist out of Nelson. This was done before my time. I don't know why they were posted and attached to the Nelson detachment. I think it had to do with more of a supervision thing versus like actually moving them. So they haven't been unattached to Nelson and reattached to Trail. However, I think we do have an ability to staff them, but then we would get a replacement for the general duty member we staff. So like we have the same pot of members. So if we had, let's say we have full staff, 16 constables right now. If we pull 2 out of that pool and put in the crew, we still have 16 constables. But if we wait for the positions to be officially attached, if we pull 2 out of our current pool, we'll get 2 additional to replace those. I think this is a matter of days to weeks of happening, so I'm just waiting for it to be official before I put anybody in those roles. Because one, we don't want to initiate a transfer from Nelson, because if the RCMP follows its own rules, it may initiate a cost transfer, which costs everybody money for no reason, so. I'm just waiting for the official word when they're back, and then we'll staff them, then we get we'll get the 2 general duty members, and we'll have 18 constables rather than 16.
And then, sorry, just one final question, and it's leading into what, Councillor Paschal was getting into in regards to drug use, and I mean, no one wants to beat a dead horse, but I mean, I think when we see what the province says about drug use, it's very easy for someone to misunderstand, or it's not clear between what the public is receiving for information that's getting put out there from the province and what, you know, you're telling us is the process, right?
Yeah.
Some of it is very close, some of it is, you know, where it remains illegal, any amount of drugs in public places like hospitals, businesses, transit and parks. That's where someone can say, hey, well, why aren't we doing anything, right? And I understand the process that you were saying. But the one thing I did want to follow up with, and I mean, I'm happy we can definitely follow up. I think we have approved meetings with the Minister of Public Safety, Solicitor General, as well as the RCMP trainer and whatnot.
That's correct.
Just the sheltering in place, because that was something that I specifically asked last year at UBCM, and they said if they are in a tent that is sheltering in place, but I mean, maybe what they're saying and what is actually enforceable to Crown are two completely different things, and maybe that's where the disconnect is. If you could just provide a little more clarity, because we'll seek clarity as well.
So you're going to get different interpretations,
Mhm.
and just depending on what you actually do for the job, it gets a lot more challenging. Sheltering in place can be simply sitting on a bench, because that's the only place. Whether or not someone has a tent, like that's the difficult part, like, or maybe if you can track down their tent, but. You know, tents are shared, they give up this tent, they have this tent over here, their tent burns down. It's a little more challenging, I think clinically, if you look at it, yes, that makes a lot of sense, however, on the street, it's much more complicated. I think each situation has to be managed, we are cautious, because now, any arrest that results, let's say, in injury or. Something, even if we take their drugs and destroy them, and we weren't allowed to, it results in public complaints, sometimes IIO investigations, code of conduct. It's very serious business to arrest someone, it's not done off the cuff. Back in the day, you had a lot more leeway, but it's pretty clear now that we have to approach cautiously and we have to articulate everything we do. Plus, body cams are coming, so, you know, I think what I would call back in the day, gray arrests, you arrest someone just because they're a pain in the ass, and you make something up. If you could explain your way out of it, you're supported. That doesn't happen anymore. You need grounds, and pretty soon you're gonna be video, and if that doesn't match up, you're gone. And I think that's where officers are thinking, that I think the side that people don't see here is that every single day, there's an officer in my detachment under scrutiny for a public complaint, code of conduct, or IIO. Like, if an IIO is more rare, but somebody in our areas right now, it's every day, all the time. And the reason why we're getting body cameras is because trust in the police is at an all-time low, and now they're gonna review all our cameras, and trust me. My officers are smart, and they're preparing themselves for cross-examinations, for possible complaints. Everything is very defensive now, so if we don't follow the procedure and we have a gray arrest, it's a lot of trouble. And sometimes it results in us being sued, an officer being disciplined or being off work for a long time. And I think, you know, a testament to members coming back to work and being at work and us continuing with the same allotment is that we're very careful about our arrests, and I've been reinforced with my officers. We're going to do everything legally and carefully, and if there's a situation, go for it, 100%. But if it's not, don't mess around me, like, and I think in bigger detachments, you'll see a lot more issues, because it's a lot harder to control as many officers, but. I could tell you stories about officers who made their own arrest and now are in criminal court or in IO investigations. And I think you see that in the news. It's very hard to describe your mindset and what you're doing now. Most of the time, if an officer goes to a criminal court, they're usually okay. However, it's 2, 3, 4 years of life. One gentleman here was involved in a shooting, 7 years off work, and like, that's over making one split-second decision. So we have to be very careful about what we do.
And just want to say thank you. You guys all do an outstanding job. I know this is a lot, and I mean, there's so many different gray areas and conversations and what's gonna get approved, what's not, what's gonna go, what's gonna get thrown out, and so I can understand the frustration you guys face in dealing with the decisions you have to make, so please, you know, take.
I'll explain quickly. Arrests are different than charges. Charges result in responsibility and like jail conditions. Arrests are just arrests. They don't mean anything if you're just arresting people for nothing. Like it's a much lower threshold to arrest someone than to charge someone, but arrests also involve a very high risk to the officer.
Thank you, Mike. I think Councilor Benson has
Just
a
one
question.
follow-up question through the chair. Thank you for giving the steps and the process that you go through. My, just one question from that is on like the last step where, you consider an arrest, and if there's drugs on the person, you have to give them back. Is that only if it's under the 2.5 grams, or what if it's more
Yes,
than the 2.5?
if there's more than 2.5 grams, we will happily throw them away, because then we know that we're not picking that person off the street. But most of the time, like people on the street are savvy.
Yeah.
Even people who deal drugs all carry under 2.5 grams. It's a weird feeling going to cells, having someone under arrest and then returning the drugs when they leave. Like that's never happened in my career. Plus possession arrests, which really led to a lot of other great things, like other discovery of weapons,
Yeah.
discovery of more drugs and trafficking. Those are really damaged our ability to investigate other things, because that was like a way in. Once an arrest is legal and you arrest someone, you can search them. You usually find other things, and all sorts of stuff resulted out of that, but that was one of our best tools. Not to say there isn't other tools if someone's causing a disturbance or breaching their conditions, but that's the challenge. Even if we do catch someone with drugs over, rare will be the case that Crown will proceed with the possession charge. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen as long as my career continues on. Even prior to decriminalization, there had to be exceptional circumstances, like multiple offenses with involving violence before they lay a possession charge. Even that, usually that got dropped in favor of other charges. So possession charges and convictions have been long out of favor with this in Canada.
And if it's over the 2.5, do you have to give it back too?
No,
No,
you
you
don't.
don't.
Yeah, you keep it.
Thanks.
Just one final question through the chair.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
And thank you, Councillor Benson. Just tying into what Councillor Benson's raised. My question is, do you have any data on how many times you've actually returned less than 2.5 grams of illegal drugs to arrestees? Do you have any data on that, Sergeant?
We haven't been tracking it, but we could look through our arrest logs and determine whether or not drugs were returned, give you an approximate number.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
It probably wouldn't include like arresting people on the street and returning drugs, but it would give us some idea of prisoners who had drugs on them and it was returned, and just be going through the sheets to see how many times it occurred. But again, I'm not sure if that would be overall representation of the issue at hand. But it'd be something I can check into.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So I'm sorry, when I do have a quick question.
There's no time there.
You know. No, seriously. Seriously, Counselor, I wanted to ask, because we are getting a lot of alerts about how poisonous the drugs are. And they're very, very toxic right
Yeah.
now. And I'm wondering, does the RCMP get those alerts when we get them? Okay, you do. Cause I always wonder how people on the street find out that they're toxic, either by word of mouth or,
Word of mouth of the person beside them drops,
yeah.
or they drop themselves, get revived. Yeah. So there's a process called edging, or there's a couple different names for it, but basically, and this is one story told to us, told to one of my corporals. A gentleman set up a needle full of Narcan, resting against it. He knew that the drugs he was taking would likely kill him because they were so potent. Does drugs anyway, starts to pass out, starts to go into the netherworld, falls on the needle, brings himself back to life. Now, this is the story he told us, whether it's not, it's true, but that's the level of mindset that we're dealing with addiction. Generally, this is not a popular thing. People are on the stairs, people are in the parks, people are where you can see them. Generally, those people survive. The ones we're losing are the ones who are by themselves, along the river, in the alley, under a blanket, at home. Like, at home is the actually number one statistic of people dying, because they're at home alone, they die and no one's there to save them. People on the street, some of the people downtown, I'm sure you all know them. I'm amazed they're still alive, but they're pretty advanced in keeping themselves alive, even though the toxic supply, the drug supply is toxic, it's gonna keep getting worse, it's gonna kill everybody eventually, it's insane. And I can't warn it enough, but when you're dealing with addicts, to take that chance. But, good example, I dropped my son off at university, and last year, they had a student die from drug use. Two students were affected, one survived, one didn't. The girls that were with them, there's four altogether, lied about the drug use, so no one delivered Narcan. And the time they figured it out, one was dead and one barely made it. So we're not talking the street, it's everywhere, doesn't matter where you get it from, don't use it, fentanyl is very potent, very toxic, and, it doesn't matter, like the gentleman who died a week ago, advanced user. I literally found him on the street, revived him myself, and he got up and went to his bank appointment after being completely KO'd. But yet, even he succumbed, like, that's how terrible it is, and it's alert after alert they do. Like, it's so much that I think people just ignore it, because every day there's an alert.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, Mike, and, thanks for everything that you do. Unfortunately, we do have to move on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So next up, we have our airport manager.
Hey, guys.
Woo. Welcome, Enrico.
Yeah, through the chair, good afternoon, everyone. Everyone had a great summer. Grab a brief update. For the Trilogy report, for July and for August. So starting off with passenger numbers. July 2025, we have a total of 2,035 ingoing outgoing passengers, which is up 332 from July 2024. With that, we had 5 cancellations. 3 were planned maintenance by Pacific Coastal Airlines, and 2 were weather related. August, we had a total of 1,928 travelers, which is up 236 from August of 2024. Again, 5 cancellations, 2 were planned. 1 was weather, and 2 were caused by delays through air traffic control in Vancouver. They were both, those cancellations were on the same day. They had massive shortage of personnel for ATC. If council recalls, I brought up an issue with dead Dutch elm trees along Highway 22 a few months ago. That was causing some issues for our wildlife management fence in the aspect of some branches were breaking and slightly damaging the fence here and there. The storm on the 31st of July unfortunately caused 4 trees to come down and completely destroy 4 sections of my wildlife management fence, which were dead elm trees. My team quickly, as soon as it was discovered, removed the trees, put up temporary fencing. Once the temporary fencing was in place, just to prevent any kind of wildlife incursions onto the airport, the team then went and did a proper patch and repair of the fence line. As we still had fencing left over from when the wildlife management fence was constructed, so that's been completed. Moving forward, we still have numerous amount of dead elm trees that are still standing that are just a matter of time. I did go back to the ministry stating our issue that we had, that now these trees have destroyed fence line. Ministry again came back and said that they're not responsible for the trees, even though it's on their right of way or their landing, if you want to call it. Because they weren't planted by the ministry. They suspected it was planted by the district or municipality, or maybe, who knows, even tech back in the day, whoever held the land. Right, so as long as they're not a hazard to the highway, they don't do anything with the trees. But as they are part of, they're being used as part of a study on Dutch elm disease within the Kootenays. We're looking right now to get a permit to have these trees removed. So that's something that I'll have to factor into my budget. You know, the ministry hasn't got background yet on the process of it. But that's pretty much our only potential move going forward to prevent further damage to our trees, because it is inevitable that more trees are gonna come down. Another one of their options was for us to move our wildlife management fence. But that is a long stretch of fence and a very costly endeavor to do, just to avoid some trees. It'd be more proactive to get the permit and get those trees removed.
Mhm.
I think my estimate that I had, preliminary estimate for all 20 trees, I believe, was around $28,000 around there. But we've got for 4, so that might bring down the price a little bit. So that's, so again, waiting for the ministry to get back to me with direction on permit submission. Again, for November, December, we're looking at a DCAP application for the airport master plan. I do believe that since the submission was late this year, that not our fault, but because of their intake system through DCAP, we still have the letters of recommendation are in place that are all dated for 2025. So I believe that we can submit those again with the same application that we did last year, which will be the intake for November, December. Moving forward with that, however, anticipating that if we don't get the grant,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be forwarding it to council down the road that we factor that into our budget for next year, for the airport budget, as this, I believe it's important that we get this master plan going. And lastly, the parking prices that were approved by council have been put into effect as of Friday, so the machines have all been updated. We're good to go on that aspect. And that concludes my update. To the chair, I'll be willing to take any questions that council may have.
Any questions for Nathan? No, I don't see any.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to corporate services, manager of legislative services. And that would be Stephanie.
Yeah, just a quick update to you on some postings that we currently have out at the moment. We have a position in our accounting department that we're seeking to fill for accounts payable. And Public Works is also looking to fill a mechanic position following a recent resignation, as well as a carpenter position that is temporary in nature, but is to cover an extended leave of absence. And we also have some very exciting news in our corporate services department with the addition of the city's planner, who started work with us last Tuesday, September 2nd, and I'm gonna ask our chief administrative officer to introduce me to you this evening, or this afternoon.
Chris, come and take the hot seat. So we're fortunate that Chris has come and joined us. His family is still back in Victoria at the moment, and they will be making them the move shortly, but Chris thought it was important to get out here, and we appreciate him jumping in already. Didn't have his computer quite set up, so then he was reading through the stack of the SUP, and so at the end of the day, there was a lot of ink on that, so really glad to have that expertise coming in, helping us with such a pivotal document for the city, especially as we update it for so many years and as it helps us move forward. So we also know, Sandy said, I was already up there and I already had some planning questions. I just gave them to Chris. And so already the benefit to staff, even on for us down below that we're handling things that didn't have that expertise. We're really glad to have you here. And you got everyone from council here. Councilor Buller did step out, but we have Councilor Hanson here. So you may have already met her.
We met on Saturday.
Met on Saturday, okay, you got Councilor Martin.
On Saturday.
Councilor Benson,
We met an hour ago.
okay. fair enough. I already introduced you to the mayor. Yes,
We met
yes,
on
yes,
Saturday.
Yes, Councilor Cashwell, I'm not sure if you met on Saturday.
We did meet on Saturday.
There you go.
What were you guys doing on Saturday?
You didn't even get the memo. Chief Derby actually was asking.
Oh, I bet. Well, it's nice to meet you. I'm Doug. Yeah, Chris. Nice to meet you, man. Welcome on board and.
And Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add or just give council an update on how you're doing and where you at.
Sure, I didn't really plan anything,
Nope.
but had to just go on the spot. It's day 7 of the job here. I'm very excited to be here, very excited to bring my family up here. Jumping into this role, there's a very interesting project on the table being the OCP. And I'm very excited to move that forward. Previous experience in Prince Rupert and as well as the Islands Trust on Salt Spring Island in developing and implementing these projects. And just browsing through the bylaws these past 7 days, especially day 1 without the computer. I think there's lots of room for innovation and updating for sure. So stay tuned.
Anyway, we welcome you. Thank you
Yes.
for joining our team.
Yeah, welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you. Next up, we have Museum Archives and the Visitor Center Manager, Sarah Benson Lord. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, just to give you an update from, I think I was here last month. Here last month, right?
2 months ago.
July.
Was it July?
Yeah.
Okay, July. We had pretty remarkable summer in the visitor center. We were keeping a bit tighter statistics in terms of not just a generic area where folks are visiting from, but we've been really specific. August was tremendous. Okanagan, East Kootenay, Thompson, Nicola, Nova Scotia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Quebec, and Ontario were our Canadian visitors. Oh no, Yukon was July. But the US count is significantly higher. Texas, San Francisco, in Washington, we were seeing folks from Spokane, Colville, Olympia, and Tri-Cities. We had visitors from Oregon, Arizona, Nebraska. We had 4 unique parties from the UK last month. One from Portugal, Australia, and Mexico.
Wow.
Now, these are just the folks that are popping in, right? That are actually coming in to interact with us. So that could be considerably higher. But we were staggered at the amount of people traveling by car. I think the clear skies this summer, obviously not including
Yeah.
a few days, made for much nicer road trips. And people were just keen to come in through this space and maybe pull off the main highway to check out what's going on in this area. I'll provide you our Q3 data for the museum and archives. So in terms of research inquiries and donations, I'll do that in my October session, but I wanted to give you an update on our deaccession project. So the last of our museum artifact items were reviewed and considered by staff. So we're generating a huge spreadsheet as a result of this, which we then present to a small committee of the Trail Historical Society. And it's a full day event to sit down and go through one by one and discuss rationale as to why we think something should be removed from our collection. But we hope to do that at the end of this month with the formal removal, so actual exclusion and distribution, hopefully to another repository at the end of October. We'll begin that. The goal here is to see that storage unit removed as a line item in their budget, which will reduce the ask annually of the Historical Society City. We have a new exhibit case in the works. Specs are designed and approved. This is gonna go in, if you're familiar with the museum, you walk through the main entryway, and you walk all the way to the wall just before our immigration section. We placed our early industry interpretive panels there, which helps speak to why the immigration boom occurred. So it's sort of a chronological space. And we've got a whole new exhibit case and another unique one that's designed to a really unique way to house a Toledo Troy ounce scale that came out of the silver refinery that Teck donated to us. 100 years old.
Right.
It's in pristine condition, and we found one photo last week from about 1941 of this scale, which was really remarkable that we found one. It was awesome. So that's all going to go in by the end of the year. It's expensive. How expensive is it?
Toledo scale.
Yeah, okay. Well, Teck was very kind to donate that to us. I've also made a request to tour what's known as the greenhouse. I think it was the old cafeteria, if I'm correct. And I understand that there are oodles and oodles of things like pattern shop patterns. They had pattern makers up there. It's the amount of skill that was and still is employed at Teck, but the amount of skill, the trades up at Kamenko in those days is remarkable. So they made their own tools, they made their own parts, and there's some of these things still exist, and it would be really, really great to exhibit some of that and showcase the talent that was and still is prevalent in my community. And gift shop sales are up remarkably this year. We've got another 4 months to go, so I'm hoping Christmas will be a bit of a boom as well. Our programming continued despite holidays. We had visits to Poplar Ridge, Columbia View Lodge, and Mount Simon Fruitvale. And of course, our famous Hot Stove League, one of which one participant sits here. I wish I could invite, well, some of you can come, maybe half the room could come. But the rich dialogue and conversations that come out of those sessions with these gentlemen is amazing. Robert Hampton Gray Day. Firstly, thank you to all those who attend. I understand it is a Friday in the middle of summer, so some weren't able to attend. But I was pleased with the turnout, and to those of you that, I think everyone went to the Legion afterwards to enjoy a bite to eat. I received a lot of interaction after that. Even a member of the Shearwater base in Halifax communicated with us to thank us. And Robert Hampton Gray's niece is still in touch and wanted to thank us. So I'm extending that thank you. She sent me an email the other day to thank us for holding this event and recognizing this. In speaking with President Glenn Hodge, he's going to inquire with, I guess, Legion Command about potentially a bronze plaque on the cenotaph as well that commemorates Robert Hampton Gray. He would be, of course, on the Nelson cenotaph, but it's typical, it should be in the community from which they lived at the time that they passed away. But we're gonna hope that they'll make an exception for this one, because it's quite unique, the Victoria Cross designation. For those of you that haven't seen any of our announcements, we have a really exciting speaker on Saturday. I know it's Smoky Palooza, but it's the only way we can get her here. Eileen Delahanty Perks will be joined by Shelley Boyd of the Snipes Confederacy and Cindy Marchand, who is the chair of the River and Wildlife Committee for the Snipes Confederacy. And will be, it's part of Eileen's Big River Speaker Tour, we're a stop. We've decided to hold it at the Griff in the Charles Bailey, just for a more intimate setting and a little less distraction outside. So please do consider coming. It's from 2 to about 3:30. You've still got lots of time to make it over to Butler if you plan to do that. I think it'll be a very interesting discussion. Eileen is very well versed in the history of the Columbia River, its present state, and has obviously some hope for the future. And it's a transboundary discussion, so we'll get some insight from the American side and an indigenous lens as well. So please do come. Tickets are $15 and they're available at the museum for purchase. We will be participating in Amazing and Aging on October 1st. The decision is to hold this event in the Riverfront Center, so tables will be set up in our galleries as well. Which will make a great segue. Oh no, the day before is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So we'll be set up for that and it'll roll in nicely with that. Again, this is a joint initiative between the city, which is the museum as well, the library, Trail and District Arts Council, VISAC, the West Kootenay Métis, the local 480 provide some sustenance with some food. And Tech is the major sponsor with this event. So we're just nailing down those details now. We had a great meeting last week. So you'll see that program out very soon. And Claire and I have been busy commiserating about Trail 125. Next year is our 125th anniversary. Ideas are flowing. Of course, we will have to scale a lot of these back, but we dream big first. There's a lot going on next year. But we certainly want to ramp up our visitor guide to actually maybe tailor it to more of a community guide to encourage some more local investment through advertising as a commemorative issue. So we have a meeting with Antelka at the Black Press tomorrow. Or this week, yes. We'll expand our commemorative calendar that the archives produces, so we'll be working on that now. We received generous funding from Tech for that. So we'll figure out a way to make that sort of, you purchase the calendar, perhaps it's numbered, there could be a prize drawn. Some more events, and we have a meeting with the Columbia Basin Trust on Wednesday regarding potential funding for that event, so Claire and I will be sitting down with them. And then, of course, we'll present to you what we hope we can pull off. With the facility, we're working on some accessibility opportunities with the library. The Columbia Basin Trust has provided $100,000 operating or project grants for accessible amenities within library spaces. So this one's a little tricky because the library, of course, doesn't own the building, but we're looking at ways to enhance things like wayfinding. Our wayfinding, although pretty, isn't necessarily very accessible. With a lot of it is suspended, it's high, the font is small. We want to do a little bit more to create a more obvious and unified approach to that. There's a lot of graphics on the wall. I don't know if you come in, they're very busy, the walls and the wall wraps. Almost too much so. They look nice, but they're not quite as accessible as they should be. And there's some other things that I know Samantha will be talking with Colin about that. Incident reporting, we had a total of 8 last month. We had a couple issues with our front door. Sleeping patrons, lengthy washroom visits, some banned patrons entering the building, and we did have one theft of some library materials. And I'm also working on some safe work procedures for tasks specific to the Riverfront Center. So glass removal, plexiglass removal, all of these things require a safe work procedure per our Occupational Health and Safety Committee. So those have been submitted for approval for our next meeting, and anything that comes in, those are the types of things that I work on for the building. I think that's it. If anyone has any questions for the chair.
That was awesome. Thanks. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to the finance department and we have our chief financial officer, to do these second quarter staff report.
Yeah, just a quick one too. I noted that our communication and events manager was on the agenda, but something came up suddenly that took her away from attending with us today. Just not of fear, but just letting you guys know. So I know that the quarter two staff update is a bit dated. I understand. I would have liked to, if I had been able to get, Air Canada got my flight in, we would have been able to discuss this in August there. But it's there before council. I don't know if we have any questions. There's also the Silver City Days. Numbers are there as well, and so I thought we had a very successful event. That was in particular the fact that it's always a bit of a gamble and conservative budgeting, but not quite always knowing what's gonna happen when we take on an event like High Prof. And we were successful with ticket sales, which really made a difference in how things operated. Last year, the previous year, we had an event as well, wasn't as successful, and of course, that put some pressure on it like that. So, and now it's hard because when you hit it out of the park, it's literally like, what do you do next year to kind of improve things? And we've got the 125th, so there's lots going on, and we've had a bit of a break, but dates also not updated. I'm surprised that Councilor Benson that wasn't updated, but on vacation, I understand. So anyway, I don't know if anyone has any questions on Silver City Days.
Well, yeah, well, I was going in order of,
Oh, okay.
how they were, on the agenda.
Sure.
I guess my first question is on the, City of Trail Statement of Operations,
Yes,
for the period that ended June 30th, 2025.
yes.
I'm looking at protective services
Yeah.
and I see the actual year to date is 795,711. I'm thinking that might be a quarter amount, because I don't know if that's reflects year to date, or maybe I'm reading it wrong, Mr. McClure.
No, it's a great point. So what happens is that when they do the second quarter, it doesn't come as early. Because they're always doing the reconciliation, because their year end is from April 1st until March 31st. We usually get that invoice fairly quick when we get the first quarter. Second one, they tend to be later because they are working through all of the ins and outs of them, doing their year end. And so it takes a bit while for us to get that. But this again, consistent with previous years of us waiting until we get the invoice. And so that will be reflected in 2020. When we do the third quarter here, again, it will look like at half, because we'll still be waiting on their next invoice. That's sort of the way it goes. And then, of course, I'm always trying to reconcile or assume what's going to happen when we're doing this budgeting piece when we get to December 31st. So it's not perfect, but we try to work within those numbers.
Thank you. And just a question, to the chair,
Mhm.
On the Silver City Days budget. Thank you for submitting this. I'm just looking at, revenue, just above revenue. There's events, and it looks like we've got $25,835. Now, what is that relating? What event is that related to?
So that was the high profit.
That's the profit that we made?
No, that's just the revenue side.
The revenue side?
Yeah.
Okay. And down here at the bottom, it says support wages and benefits. Now, does that include the wages of committee members when they're attending
It
committee?
does not. No.
It does not, okay.
It kind of noted there, it says public works, so PW, I understand that sometimes.
Oh, okay, that answers that. Okay, thank you, Mr. McGuire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cashel. Is there any other questions? Okay, so have two recommendations before council. And the first one is that the 2025 second quarter financial report for the 6 months ending June 30th, 2025 be received for information. Thank you. All those in favor? That was carried. And the other recommendation is that the 2025 Silver City Days financial report be received for information. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried.
That was the updates I have. We're again back into things where the third quarter will come, more timely than the gap between June 30th. So we'll be talking in a few months, or 6 weeks or so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McClure. So we're moving on to our staff reports, and we have 2 monthly reports. We have the bylaw enforcement report for August 2025, and the grant summary report for September 4th, 2025. Is there any questions or comments on those reports before we move to recommendations?
That's a comment that I really appreciate getting, so we see where we are kind of halfway through the year, so thank you for.
Well, and I think manager and team is saying, hey, we've got some grant and aid coming, so we need to provide that update where we're at.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No, okay, so the recommendation is council consider and resolve to receive the information. Is there someone to make that motion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you, that was carried. The Municipal Insurance Association of BC, the UBCM voting delegate, and I will pass that on to Ms. Lucchini.
Thank you, your worship. Yes, the MIA AGM is taking part in Victoria as part of the UBCM. Currently, council must confirm its voting delegate and an alternate for the AGM in the event that the voting delegate gets busy or something comes up in the schedules that they can't make it. Currently, Mayor Jones is the voting delegate and Councillor Hanson is the alternate. No changes are required unless that is the will of council.
I think we're good. Are you, yeah, I'm good. Are you, okay, I think we're fine.
Okay.
I don't mind being the voting delegate and.
All right, then perhaps we can just leave it at that then.
Sure, perfect, thank you. So Sandy, do we need to do the recommendation?
No, because you're not making any changes.
Okay, so on to the Ability Awareness Advisory Committee Council appointment.
Yes, so this committee will be getting underway with the addition of our new planner with the city. And at the time that the council discussed who would be the liaison for the committee, there wasn't a full complement of council at the table. Councillor Martin was is responsible for this committee as the council liaison, but it would be important for you to have an alternate appointed from amongst yourselves so that he has some backup or potentially even have someone attend these meetings with him if there is interest there. So if anyone wants to come forward to be the alternate on that, we could have a motion that they be appointed as such.
Don't everybody jump up at once.
Is anybody interested in the alternate position for the Abilities Awareness Committee?
I can do it.
Councilor Benson? Is there anyone else that's? Okay, so Councilor Benson by acclamation.
I have a question.
Not relating to Councilor Benson. This has taken probably a year to come to fruition, are we gonna have to, or staff, reconnect with the folks who we?
I've been in contact with
Okay,
them.
are they still interested?
Yep.
That's my next one.
Yes, they are, and we'll be looking at scheduling the first meeting of the committee. And probably as soon as Councillor Benson returns.
Okay, thank you.
I've had lots of questions from people that are on the committee waiting to get a meeting going. Yeah,
Oh, yes, and I would also ask that we bring this motion forward tonight. To confirm, and then as well, I should have mentioned that with the MIA. Oh, there is no motion with the MIA, that's fine. If you could bring it forward this evening for confirmation, it's just pretty much a formality for you. So if you could just read the motion that Councillor Benson be appointed.
yes, thank you. So the recommendation is that council appoint Councillor Bev Benson as a member of council to serve on the Abilities Awareness Committee. And thank you, all those in favor. Thank you, that was carried. Okay, on to our tree inventory and assessment.
I can speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council. Thank you, your worship. Just speaking on behalf of the grounds and roads manager, earlier through the summer, we ran a request for proposal to solicit some consultants to complete a tree assessment and inventory. So our maintenance practices in regards to trees have been somewhat ad hoc, based on complaints, based on staff reviews. This is primarily in our green spaces and major parks. We have a operations budget that we use to manage any hazardous or liability issues, as well as if we're keeping track of a dead or dying tree, planning for that to come down, those are using contracted services, just due to the size of those trees. So we ran this request for proposal. As you can see, we had a number of potential proponents. Staff is asking that we award to, sorry, lost the name there, Bartlett Tree Experts out of the Lower Mainland. They did have some good information on projects of similar scope and size. What we're looking to do through this assessment with the budget available, we had split our green space and parks into three priorities, high, medium, and low, just to determine, we didn't know what the cost would come back, so at least we could prioritize based on the funding available and phase after that. But with the budget available, we were able to do high, medium, and low all this year. Some examples of high would be Gyro Park, the walkway from Gyro to Sunningdale, places where there's a lot of interface with citizens that are using our amenities. This would also include some of our user parks, say Popel Park, though there's not trees right in the vicinity, at least the close proximity that could cause a hazard. So we can, what this will entail is at a certain size of the tree, which is greater than 8 inches, they would record this tree, let us know the species, what kind of health it is, and any kind of maintenance responsibilities that we should be looking at. Therefore, we can actually formulate a maintenance plan from there. And then as that starts to develop and our public works managers are getting that under control, the recommendation for you is to award the tree inventory and assessment to Bartlett Tree Experts in the total amount of $58,573,000.30, exclusive of GST.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? That's great, thank you. And that will come forward in our regular council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Item E is our 2026 strategic priorities capital infrastructure grant. I'm not sure who's doing that.
I'll tackle it.
Okay, thank you.
So, not every year, but, I guess in this number of years, the Strategic Priority Fund, which is part of the community, what used to be called the Community Works Fund, still Better Canada. They will be some releasing of funding, and then that allows the province to put it out to all the municipalities to be able to apply for grants. This ones are unique because they're 100%. A lot of times I think that we in the past have seen where, you know, there will be, say, 30% or 35 from the feds, 35 or so or less from the province, and then the city needs to come up with the remaining funds. So this is an exciting time for all municipalities. I think if you would read in the papers, you will, note that Roslyn just was looking for something. Nelson just approved putting in their application for their new, or for trying to replace their sewer line that goes from town all the way out to the plant. So the big projects, and so there's a real hope there, because anytime we can get this types of funding, 100% is quite valuable. We know, or we looked at, and again, it could be difficult to make decisions on where which projects to apply for. But we certainly, as a team, felt that the Charles Lake Twinning, which is a major water project that we have on the books, and so we have brought that forward. There's no guarantee that we get this funding, but it's important that we get an application in. And so we're also hoping maybe the fact that we're not looking for the full 7 million, maybe that can, allows us to share it with someone else, so maybe they'll pick us. So our application will be going in. The one piece that I will say is that in doing the resolution, we got a note saying that we should update it because there's actually kind of specific wording from the grant application as to what the wording should be. So I will just I don't know if anybody has any questions on it first. Oh, yes.
Through the chair, when do they announce, if we're successful or not, once the grant goes?
Yeah, it usually takes a number of months.
Okay.
So if I'm thinking if it's all kind of coming in near the end of the month, that you're probably looking around December.
And would it be for like next year's?
That's what we're hoping.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it'd be nice to have that. as
That'd be
far as
great.
budgeting. It would be
Yeah.
fantastic, so. Yeah. When in our resolution, we did talk about that, council approved the submission to the 2026 Strategic Priorities Fund under the capital infrastructure stream. That the council resolution be attached to this grant application must include that the council indicates supporting for the proposed activities and a willingness to provide overall grant management and support any cost overruns. So don't know if anyone may leave it up to Sandy to kind of make sure that we get that resolution in place there without maybe reading it back to you, but I don't know if that's enough for us to get you to pass it here, because we're gonna want it to come to regular. So I think on regular, we will have a properly resolution for the mayor to read when we get to that part of the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pasha. All those in favor? And that was carried, thank you.
Well, yeah, we can provide a draft that's regular.
Okay. Okay, so that will be coming back again as well. So item F is the Communities in Bloom succession planning. And we have a report from Mr. McClure. Regarding the future of Communities in Bloom and the potential options and recommendations for the succession of CIB and flower bed maintenance.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor and Council, and just as a recognition for those that are wondering online or otherwise why we were doing this, there was a notice of motion put forward by Councillor Peschel that Council approved in itself to take a look at. And there was a number of questions that came for this Communities in Bloom and what's the plan. So we have done our work as far as number of staff getting together, going through historical documents, looking at options, and we do provide our recommendations here. A couple of things I will note in that, we have kind of 3 different recommendations, and we would ask that they are all read separately, and that council has the opportunity to look through them, ask questions, and provide direction on. Obviously, if there's something there that council is not in agreement with, they could certainly vote that down and then, propose another recommendation if they like. One thing that I think was clear from even what kind of kicked some of this off is that from historically, there was a work done on a report that said that we were outside boundaries. There's a risk to the city as far as how Communities in Bloom was operating. It was not a non-for-profit, and it was not a select committee of council. So that's certainly one of the main reasons why this was also brought forward. And I think that us coming back to what was recommended back in 2012, and as much as we worked over the past year, and it came very clear from those senior in CIB that they were not interested in going through the process of becoming a non-for-profit. Again, there is organization that's involved with that. There's a board that would be required. There would be CRA reporting. So it's certainly understandable that most of the people that are doing the great work on CIB volunteering want to put plants in. They want to make sure that they're watered. They're not necessarily wanting to be part of that, administrative component of what it means to be a non-for-profit organization. So that certainly was one of the 2 options. Basically, is either if you were going to continue this way, and we've also sort of changed sort of that select committee and our recommendation from being a CIB committee to more of a beautification committee, meaning that we don't necessarily have to commit to being part of the CIB voting. We can certainly, you know, in a year decide that we want to do that. But that would not be sort of that ongoing drive and being part of either the national and or provincial. I did know, as we did a lot of this homework, is that we are unique in that many communities, when you think about how many municipalities we have, how many are actually involved, even on the provincial level is, you know, pretty tiny, and then who's over on the national level. And part of that is not because they don't like beautification of the community or the plants or the pride and the beautification that happens within the community, but there is certainly a cost that's related to that their staff time, resources. Again, great that we've had a very successive and I guess ongoing volunteer group, but that doesn't always continue on. And so when staff went through and looked at the particular options, and one of the other things that council and community would see it in as that we have sort of a CIB, and then we've also got an MD landscaping. So we got sort of two, contracts sort of going on. One is, a general contract to do some flower bed work. We were fortunate last time to get someone to carry on for a number of years. There's certainly, there was only one person that actually applied for that particular grant, for that particular project. Contract, and so as we go forward here, it ends at the end of September or end of October, I guess, and so we would have to be going out anyway for that. So part of the work that we did is that we could see, and that's why we put the staff recommendation forward from council as the department heads came together and looked at, I think we could have some synergies here if we're going to take this on. We've got some staffing. We put that in place. Not only would they be able to help us with dealing with the unknown of anyone, take on a larger contract if we put out a beautification contract. If we had staffing, not only do we have them be able to do that work, but then we also could use them into other areas where we're spending money, for example, creating traffic flaggers for snow removal or for taking on some of the other work that we have throughout the community in the winter. So a lot of thought has gone into this, and it's there before council for debate, questions. And again, right now, I would just take any questions if you want on the report in itself. But also as we get to each particular recommendation, if we get that on the table, then I'm happy also to answer any questions that may come.
Councillor Hanson, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Just wondering about how, if it was to go, one of the was having it as a select committee, where there's seasonal employees. So currently, some of that we get grants for summer students, correct?
We do.
Is there an opportunity to dovetail some of that summer student work into some of that, if that was something that could come through one of the select committees?
One of the challenges, Councillor Hanson, is that when we tend to have those that are able to kind of be applying for using the students, it's more almost like the Riverfront Center or the library. Also more along the lines of those that are taking care of the summer programming versus sort of having kind of that summer student that we have for that we kind of advertise and have in the budget. We certainly did talk about the seasonal component, and the challenge with it is, which employees do you get, and then how do you have a consistency year over year? And that's where there was sort of a sense if you're trying to get the best applicants for the position, having a full-time position is going to be something that would be preferred, just from our experience on putting it out there for January. Doesn't mean that we can't, and that's certainly, like I said, these are all here for council to debate and provide direction to, but that is sort of where we move against that, and would be saying, is it possible to have some grant funding towards that work? It's possible. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what category kind of it would be.
Councillor Branson, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Colin, just a question on the permanent employees hiring, and just thinking of the snow load we had last year. Do you feel that there is enough work to keep these two people busy through winter?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was funny because working with Mr. Moorhead, we were just looking at 5 year of our snow, And if you go back 5 years ago, the amount spent in the first or that year was $600,000.
Mhm.
The year after that was $1 million. Then it was 500,000, and then the last 2 years we've been in like kind of 2.5, 3.
Yeah.
So it's sort of one of those things that's sort of a bit unfair maybe to say, are we gonna have a big snow year this year? Is it gonna snow all at
Mhm.
Christmas time when there's lots of holidays, so it costs us lots of money? So there is an unknown there. And that's sort of again where we felt that in having some permanent employees, then there's other things that we can tackle. We can also take away from what we feel is some other expenses that we're either paying to contractors, and you're right, so if you don't have enough snow, you weren't paying for those contractors' works anyway.
Thinking of the system and bylaw too, when they're.
Fair enough, I mean, we
Right.
believe, yeah, as a group, adding to our team, I think there's value there. And we also noted that where we would think that we would kind of place them, and that's where the wages are sort of are in a pay band that could do all kinds of things, so that it's not just, there's nothing for me to do. I'm not, able to help. Just even some of the things that we talk about with even trying to help out our carpenters right now. We've had someone go down with some serious injuries sort of thing. And so now you've got this backlog, I'm trying to thinking like, hey, having some additional staffing would be helpful. But it's also, there's a risk. Again, we get into a situation where we don't have a big winter maybe, or there's other areas that we're having cost pressures, and we don't put pressure on council to say, and I'm not talking maybe this year, but I'm just saying in a couple of years, if things don't kind of perk up economically for our community and our country, I should say, does that put pressure on us? And then you're having to say, okay, well, we hired these positions and then now we need to maybe cut back. And it's always a risk that you have. We feel as managers that we have enough work and not just sort of overflow from, and some taking on sort of this landscaping and that kind of work, but like I said, sort of wrapping into it in some winter operations. If not, then there will be other things for them to do. We feel confident in that, and we want to make sure that there's value and our offside of it, as well as hoping that we would be removing what we've been paying out to maybe some contractors.
Just one follow-up. I think for me, the beauty of Communities in Bloom is the volunteer base. You can see that on shirts here, and maybe just if you could speak to is that still a possibility for people wanting to spend time in?
Yeah, I mean, we are certainly hoping so. In some of the discussions we had, there was, and which is super unfortunate. When I say that there was sort of maybe a negative comment about, hey, we need to change sort of how the CIB is structured or how the education is structured, and that there was some sort of concern, or that the work that was being done by the leaders or the volunteers was either not valued or wasn't working at an acceptable level. And that absolutely wasn't it. It's just more of a administrative and protection for the city liability and being liable. And so that's why there was the two different sort of options, and that was something that was way before this council or anyone else had talked about. And it's just about trying to get that on track. Certainly there's a hope but there was also some conversations as we did some of this reporting that, well, wait a second, if you change how this is, then maybe we won't volunteer. Maybe the volunteers won't come forward. We hope we're really expectations is that we would have that support again, and that we would all, continue on with the great work that has been done. So hopefully it doesn't dissuade them or demoralize, yes, as far as what our changes are.
And would these roles help to use volunteers as part of that?
Well, I think that would be part of their
Okay.
activities, right, is to work with them and to find out, here's an area that we need help. And so that is the goal. Yeah. And just in more structured than inside the city.
Yeah.
Than it has been in the past.
Yeah, through the chair, and just to touch on what Councillor Hanson raised was seasonal employees would be hiring the right skill set, because it is definitely, I think Rachel Brown who's here today can tell you that there's more to it than just what I thought, than weeding, which I'm not very good at, by the way. So that part, the seasonal option, I can't support. And if I can just move forward, the option where we're hiring 2 staff, and I think the cost on here on your report was
21.
21.
Mhm.
I'm not prepared to support that option at this particular point in time. I think that, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but there is other areas where I think we can look at maybe hiring, and one area that I'm thinking about would be an extra bylaw person, so I would want to exhaust all measures to see if we can add to that team before hiring, two permanent positions to work in our landscaping department. Lastly, the option where you're talking about the integrated contract would be the one that I would recommend to council. However, I'd like to suggest another option, that we don't need a select committee, that we can just operate strictly through a contract to, as outlined here in the integrated contract option. So the question I ask council is, it the will of council to have a select committee to provide governance over the paid professionals we hire to take care of our flower beds? You know, I don't know if it's really something that we need to be involved in a governance role. And, that's why I'm not gonna support any of these, but the one that I like the most is the integrated contract model. And if it is the will of council, of course, you know, that's something that I will certainly support. But I would like to think we can do this without a select committee and just deal directly with a contract, amalgamating the two existing contracts. And, yeah, that's my position on it. And I do have a notion of motion that I could bring forward later. I'm not gonna bring it forward now apparently, because it's not the right timing to address my position on that. Thank you, your worship.
Did you have something?
No, it's just.
Oh.
Saying.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Hanson.
I just, thank you through the chair, Councillor Cashel, I just, I guess, you know, where you're going with that, I just want to understand, you know, if this contract goes out, who is the responsible, department that then would be the one that they would be reporting to? Because the contract still has to be managed by someone, whether it be Public Works, Roads and Grounds, whatever. So to ensure that there is no overlap of information regarding water lines that need to be fixed or sprinklers that aren't working, or, you know, as opposed to cost overruns for watering when we have people that are getting paid to fix those things and whatnot. So just taking what Councillor Cashel said, I just, Mr. McClure, could you provide, or Mr. Moorhead, in your role?
Yeah, and I think directly, it would be under the grounds and roads. That's where we would put that particular contract. That's who is now responsible for the one contract that we have. So we've got sort of that CIB, which is sort of bring it from there. The MB contract is underneath the roads and grounds manager. Yeah. And all very valid points that are being raised by Councillor Cashel. Part of it, I think, was trying to keep the spirit of the group that we have and the volunteers. And that might be one of the concerns that we have, is that if we lose that input and that consistency with the group and making sure that we show that they're valued. And again, there's no guarantee that they come, we make these changes, the council decides on that. But if we do, that would be a place where they would have input and value, and then we would be able to try to work with them. And also, you know, for us to lose out on some of that expertise potentially, and then again, because they will care about what they would do.
Councillor Cashel.
Through the chair. We don't have a succession planning in place from the Community and Bloom Group. Dan Roby's given his resignation. There's nobody internally after 24 years within the group that's coming forward to take on that role. And the fact that they weren't able to restructure, I appreciate your comments on that. But there's also an option that they have, and I got this right from John Lois when he was visiting the judge, is that Community and Bloom current group could take a 3-year sabbatical or a hiatus from Community and Bloom, where they don't have to be judged. And in that 3-year period, they can regroup. And I also believe that what we're dealing with here, which makes this very emotional and very complicated, is we're dealing with some very influential, very important, they're all volunteers are important. We've got at least 6 former citizens of the year that are actively participating in Bloom. The Roadleys included, the Wallaces, we have 2 here today, Keith Smythe and Don Utini. that carry a lot of influence, and they're people that we highly respect, and we value what they brought to the table. That same value, that same effort can be brought forward outside the umbrella of Community in Bloom. It can be brought forward. In fact, I think it was one of the members that brought it up. They could have a beautification club. They could call it a garden club. I believe the tag team, which Mr. Smythe is very active in, could still participate outside the umbrella of Community in Bloom. So we have to separate, and a lot of what we see happening with Community in Bloom is to the credit of Rachel Brown, a contractor, a paid contractor. Yes, she has done a tremendous job coordinating the volunteers. I've worked with Rachel, under Rachel, in the flower beds. Incredible how she deals with the volunteers, but she's a contractor, hired in a very abstract, like there's no written contract. It's an arrangement she has with Community in Bloom. And a lot of what we see, the hanging baskets and all the beauty that we see, is really a credit to her and Taryn and whoever else she's paid with. The volunteers do participate, and I was a part of that participation. Unfortunately, I pulled back from it. So I could sit on this committee table in my role of governance and not be biased and not just be objective. And it's been difficult because I have relationships with a lot of these folks. I've known the Roadleys for over 30 years. So we have to separate the admiration, the respect, the love that we have for our volunteers and deal with this sort of more pragmatically in terms of governance and the right way to do it. And that's why I'm proposing what I'm proposing, that we don't need a select committee. We don't need elected officials to sit on, and one to be the chair and one to be the participant, to tell professionals how they should be planting flowers and dealing with that. That's outside our realm. And I don't think our citizenry, our tax-paying residents would expect that of us. I don't think it's a requirement of governance. I know I got a bit long-winded and I apologize. And I say that I thank all the volunteers for what they've done, and I don't want to take anything away from them. And I would encourage them to just think outside Community in Bloom for a second and just work on a new strategy and carry on, and you will be admired, and your work will be just as relevant as it is under the Community in Bloom umbrella. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cashel. Does anyone else have any comments or? Okay, Councillor Hanson, and then I do have something.
Through the chair, I just wanna, just for clarity's sake, so regardless of which one of these roles, there would be a recommendation of a select committee of council. And then there would be, so this beautification committee or whatever the name becomes. And then even if we went the route of having the, let's say, the integrated contract. So there would be this committee with the integrated contract with roads and grounds with it. I'm just trying to break it down. And then there could be more things could be looked into other than just the places are planted, or just reviewing this select committee terms of reference, identifying other areas of visual appeal in neighborhoods, open spaces, making recommendations to downtown for things that could be done downtown for improving streetscapes. So we're not just looking at plants and the flowers. This is looking at, with the select committee, looking at a bigger overarching committee that is trying to do everything we can to make our community more prideful, more vibrant, and more beautiful as a whole, incorporating the contracts and Communities in Bloom into one. Just seeking clarification.
Yes. Sorry,
Yep.
Go ahead.
through the chair. So the idea of the select committee would be that they would be a conduit for any recommendations under that overarching function within the terms of reference. So for example, as Councillor Cashel said, if the committee wanted to take a break from Communities in Bloom in regards to the judging or that structure of it, that is fine, and that would be a recommendation moving forward. And then at the time where the structure is in place and everybody's feeling comfortable, they want to bring that in and be judged, that committee could bring that forward with a plan, whether that's a theme or plantings, banners, any kind of mix of amenities to council for approval, because that might incorporate more budget that is needed for that particular project or judging that year. And then it would be approved by council. So it's an advisory committee trying to, like you say, pull in all these entities into one. Yeah. So, and then, sorry, just to follow up on that last part, sorry, apologies. That direction would then go to the manager of grounds and roads, which would then disseminate out through a contract, employees, et cetera.
And that was the one piece I think, again, Council's not wrong, that if we, go, if we don't have a select committee, that is possible. It's, here's your, we'll do the work. I think that one of the particular asks in there is to have someone review, professional, kind of, what can we do? We've got three, do we make one smaller one? Cover up some of the other stuff. What could we do to sort of make it more efficient, make it easier to water, some of those kind of questions that come along. So in doing, that would be something I think no matter what we would do, I guess as one. But if we don't have sort of a select committee, and again, I'm not against saying it is, but I then asking sort of the CIB group itself to be a garden club or a beautification club, but then have no vehicle of kind of coming to council. That's the one thing that I get a little bit, this may allow for that, again, that information sharing, guidance, suggestions, that's a thought process now.
Thank you, Chair. Wouldn't they still be able to come in as delegations though and make recommendations? And I also recall talking to Mr. Rodley, and I know he's not here, he's on holiday. Safe travels to you in Lana. And he's been bringing forward over the last 24 years, multiple recommendations from the judges' reports that have basically been archived. And I'm not sure I can even speak for him, but there's been a lack of maybe action on some of the items that have been brought forward over the last 24 years. So just having Community in Bloom deliver it doesn't mean it's going to get done. I think if we had a smaller group and with some of these volunteers that are in the room today, come to us on a delegation and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we'd like to do. We would certainly entertain that. I also want to say, while I have the floor through the chair, that the recommendation that council consider and resolve the hiring the qualified third-party consultant to create a comprehensive flower bed transition plan up to $10,000. That includes proposed bed amalgamation, plant selection, water conservation, and ecological sustainability. I support that part of the integrated model. I think that's a very prudent, and I think that's a very I appreciate that recommendation being in there. Thank you, through the chair.
Councilor Benson.
Thank you through the chair. Just going back on what Councillor Cash was talking about the I guess the emotion in this vote as well. And I think the key of having a select committee of council allows for their voices to be heard more than them having to come in as a delegation to council. As a chair of a select committee where we're trying to get volunteers for Silver City Days, I would fall over if we had the support that the Communities in Bloom have with the volunteers that they have, where we're begging people for volunteers for Silver City Days too. So I think it's important for them to have a voice at a committee level. And from listening to Mr. Smyth's presentation, that was really important to them in terms of when they decided not to do the non-for-profit society, was that they have the volunteer base that wants to be heard, and it gets a little bit more structured in a not-for-profit society, and it's a lot more work. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I get it. It's an emotional thing in terms of the governance, but I think the heart of their committee is what has made this successful. So it will be a part of my decision.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you through the chair. I'm not at any, to make a decision for myself, you guys haven't seen my yard yet, it looks terrible. So I would rely, as usual, to the professionals who have worked in this role for how many years? And I guess it's just a yes or no, and I'll abide by what decision. Will we be allowed to ask somebody from the representation of Communities in Bloom here what their thoughts are?
I guess that would be up to council. I mean, we could vote on that and to see if we were ready to have that discussion with them. But I would only do that if all of council has had a voice and has spoken. And I know that there's a couple here that have not spoken yet, and I don't know if they're wanting to say something, or Councilor Butler, you're fine with? Okay.
I'm actually
Like to hear as well.
Okay, and I'll wait for Counselor Wilson to come back. But while we're waiting for Counselor Wilson to come back, I really feel that I need to say something because I've been involved with the Communities in Bloom ever since I got elected, and that was before my mayoral position. And you know, you're right, there is a lot of emotion in this vote, and I really feel that that's the elephant in the room right now. It's because we've worked beside these people for so many years and we've gotten to know them. We've gotten to know the work that Rachel's done, specifically. I don't think the committee could have been the committee without her work. And, you know, she's been absolutely amazing. And my fear, honestly, moving forward is that we would lose Rachel, you know, from the city of Trail. And that's not something I want to see. I don't want to see these volunteers leave either. I think the select committee is the best way to go because you know what? You are coming to council. There, a council chairperson, an alternate, you come, your voice is heard. We bring it back to council and you get to know exactly what Communities in Bloom is doing. It holds us accountable and it holds Community in Bloom accountable. We don't give a lot of committees in our, as council, we don't give a lot of committees $150,000 to work with without any real accountability. And I think that we have to do that for our citizens. We really do. I think it's important that they see where their money is going and they see the work that they're doing. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't want to take away from this, but I really had some concerns about that as well. That's why I appreciate that we will be developing 2 full-time positions because it is something that we need full-time. If you look at it, but the end of October.
Point of order, Mayor Jones, are you endorsing then that particular option, the one where we
No,
hired?
I'm just talking about the 2 positions.
Is that
We
the
were
option that you're
concerned.
endorsing, that you're supporting?
No, we're concerned if there's enough work for the 2 full-time
Okay,
positions.
thank you.
And I was actually talking about Rachel's position because at the end of October, is that the end of her position? As a volunteer, and then starts up right again in March. So I think there's lots of time in there where the employees could be very, very busy. I did have a question about CDS and the work that they do, cleaning up the streets and sweeping the streets and you know, who would take over that work now? Because that's not going to continue anymore if we integrate this contract, right?
Yeah, so in the report, sorry, through the chair. The CDS reduction is merely for the winter months. So that only encompasses CDS through the summer months does have an active crew that is out every day doing a number of activities for the city. In the winter, they're not active every day. They only mobilize on snowfalls greater than 2 inches. Yeah, so they have a number of priorities that the city has delegated to them to try and attend to after the 2-inch threshold has been met. But there is risk there in the sense that they may not have enough crew to attend. It may be slow to get there. And so when we're discussing winter liability, you know, we're trying to meet policy considerations on cleanliness and timeliness. This would just provide the city more expediency in those matters, especially on high risk areas. So it would only be the winter that would be discussing CDS reduction of, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you for the robust discussion. I was sitting on the fence, kind of leaning more towards not having a select committee, but after hearing Councillor Benson's comments, and if it would encourage more participation and more engagement from some of the folks sitting here today, then I could see supporting the integrated contract option. My concern would be, and I think Ms. Butler brought this up some months ago, having what's called committee fatigue. And we have other committees that were probably gonna be being introduced to today, and my concern would be, do we have the will of council to really dive in and take that on? And that would be my only concern, because it is a lot of work, it's an extra, commitment. But that being said, I appreciate, how you articulated your position, Councillor Benson, and, I would consider, I'm on the fence, considering to accept recommendation, the first one, integrated contract option. Thank you, your worship.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the council before we move on to the recommendations? Go ahead, Councillor Atkinson.
Sorry, through the chair, I believe Councillor Martin, asked for the speaking of people from communities in Bloom while they were here, when we were awaiting Councillor Wilson to come back before we decided that, so are we going to do that part first? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hanson. Does anybody from the communities in Bloom committee want to speak?
Excuse me, what?
Does anyone from the community in Bloom's committee want to speak at this time?
Well, from the point of view that we met with Colin and Tracy and senior management staff to present our report, which we did on July the 11th. And that was part of a process which started back when you asked to know what our budget was. Behind the scenes, the volunteers working with our Rachel, we brought to you, I thought was a very good presentation in terms of trying to redirect the budget. That was a lot of work. The report itself that we came forward with was a lot of work. And that meeting we had with staff and Colin and Tracy was a very valuable meeting. And we see a number of things in these recommendations that reflect that you listen to us. And in listening to us, one of the things that came out to the forefront was the work that Tracy did, communicating with the national group of the Communities in Bloom. And one of the top executives said that in all of her experience, the particular model that works the best is a select committee. So we took that stance. We worked forward with the select committee, which basically we had a select committee. We had a problem. We had a number of problems, and I think Nick has addressed one of them, was that over the years, Dan had a lot of improvements he wanted to make, and they never came. But I think there's a turmoil with our council too. I think over the years, there's been great turmoil with council, and I think we have a fresh council here. So I think through bringing this thing to a crisis with the new council, we've vetted out a pretty damn good model. And in this model, it basically says that we need you to support through financing our particular select committee. So that becomes a big part of what we can do. We also need you to help us with the administrative load, because it means paying bills. It means setting a budget. It means all the things that professional people do and organizations do. That's what I think we have, but we didn't have it polished. We have an opportunity here to polish the whole thing. When I say polish it, I mean that in the report, they're only asking for the top surface right here. There's a lot of imagination in that report. In fact, I compliment the group that worked on, the staff who worked on this and came up with this particular choices to be made. There's a lot of interesting choices there. But as you know, as you go down the road, terms of reference, the posting itself, the new framework, all of that will influence what happens next. So what you're asking for today is some kind of, you're looking at these recommendations. There's some powerful things in those recommendations. Just think of these two people that could be hired. Just think that the new select committee, what it's composed of. That's really not laid out in the report. This report in the select committee could be a representative coming in from the city council. But what's powerful is the public works gets involved. The public works gets involved at the table. And I think that's so huge. That's something Dan really didn't have on a consistent basis. He had Mr. Abenanti for a portion of time. He had Mr. Kaiser for a portion of time. And that there's been no single person that's been assigned to it for a long, long time. That was the strength. That was a real strength. In our conversation, am I talking too much here? Well, the strength, we have a very tight organization. We have a very good organization. It's a volunteer organization. How can a volunteer organization do what we're doing? I give compliments to Rachel and what she does, and she's in the know. Rachel knows the work. Rachel knows what the other contracting company's doing. When you think of amalgamating two, you've got a bigger situation here than you realize. The cost is gonna go higher. You're gonna still have to think about the workers you need, but the key is you're working close with the city now. You're working with the public works. And I think that's a very big strength of the whole thing. I could talk longer here. I could very
That's
much.
okay, thank you, Pete. No, thank you, it was great to hear from you. Well, Council Benson, go ahead.
So just through the chair, just on for me and hoping to get some feedback from council, I'm kind of stuck between either the integrated, I've canceled out the seasonal employees option personally. I'm leaning towards the integrated contractor one, but I'm just hoping for someone that's leaning towards the permanent employees ones, if they could speak to provide a bit more of their thoughts on why we should go that route, if someone was interested in that option.
A great question.
Thank you, Councilor Patchell.
Well, I think that, Mr. Smythe just spoke about that, the importance of the two full-time positions. And what it could do for the committee and, especially being able to work with Public Works and delivering that service and being able to reach out to them for extra, guidance and support as well. I just think that there's more consistency there.
And we
And,
lose Rachel,
yeah,
so, because that would be the integrated contract one, and that's where, what I heard Mr. Smythe speak about was the strength of Rachel and her team, and you put it to a unionized spot, she may not be successful at getting it depending on seniority, so.
Exactly.
But if we put it out as a contract, should we not be?
That's
right.
That's fair. And I think that's part and parcel of having that independent review sort of thing on what we're doing and how we can be efficient and be ecological, sustainable.
Councilor Benson, thank you through the chair. Councilor Benson, I'm not just responding to what you were saying there, but if, the way that I'm looking at this structuring with either which way, so integrated committee, so if it was an integrated committee, the committee would then have to apply or work through their request for budget. Like anything else every year, like Silver City Days or whatever these select committees, I just want to confirm that the intention is the process and budgeting would be similar.
Yes, well, and I would say that for the Silver City Days, we had the budget, we kind of set that, I guess, 2 years ago, and kind of carried that one forward. So again, there were some questions, I think even last year, like, hey, didn't see the numbers, and so that would be something that we would like to be on top of, but that's the same idea, right? So, of course, one thing that you have to be careful about is if we're not going to employees, I'm still gonna buy flower beds, but it could mean, hey, we don't have the funds to be able to have, say, for example, hanging baskets on every single pole or 200 pole or that sort of thing. So there may be some efficiencies that we need to gain on how do we make it still continue to be beautiful, take in that information that we've been gleaning from someone taking a third party outside view of where's ways we can try to be to improve what we do. So I don't know, there's a transition here. And so, and also thinking about, yes, we've got communities in bloom, but we're also taking now in all of the, what would be, if we had employees, taking in what type of thing has been done by a contractor in the past. So unknowns there as well. So, but that's sort of, you try to think, rather than having something that's divided, having something that's now combined. And that's responsibility of the city, and obviously, like I said, in having that select committee, it was a belief or a thought through that terms of reference, that that's where you would get that guidance and expertise and support and volunteer connection, I think, as well, of being able to have input on how we're doing and what we're doing. So that's sort of my thought process on.
Mr. Wilson.
Through the chair, and this might be a question directed at Rachel, but if we do the committee route, and we have, or you join the committee, that's kind of an assumption. Is it? Yeah, and then I guess my second part is, could we contract that work out to Rachel? And I don't know if we can answer that now or.
And again, through our procurement policy, we couldn't just automatically kind of award that.
Not just to one, you have to follow
You'd
the,
have to, yeah, especially with a contract of that size.
for sure, because now it's coming in through the city officially, and so you got to, okay. Thank you.
Councilor Ben?
Like, sorry, it's a big decision through the chair. I guess in terms of also like the permanent employees, like what, in terms of like our. You know, I see the CDS contract as like kind of like our social licensing also in terms of providing support to. People that may not be able to work elsewhere. Is there any comments you have on how we would handle that?
Yeah, fair, comments. I know that, yeah, even for, last winter, sort of again, too, we talked about it, you know, it wasn't maybe winter that we expected tons of snow, but we did have that one big dump. And then it froze. Got wet, got warm, and so we actually contracted with them to deal with a number of locations that did not deal with their, with their front of their businesses and things like that. And so we had, you know, said, hey, we need someone to come and deal with this. And so Ms. Lucchini had a number of contracts with them to kind of do that work. Will that happen again next year? I don't know, but those are the sorts of things as well, that if someone's not following through, then we say, hey, CDS, we need your help.
Yeah.
And then we also say, business owner or homeowner, this is something that we're now building you, because,
Right.
so there's sort of a, that's how we dealt with some of those. So there would still be some potential for that type of work.
Councilor Hanson?
Thank you, through the chair. So going around the integrated contract with the select committee, that would then be dynamic landscaping that would incorporate their whole budget for whatever their staff wages were, their whatever to do all the weeding and all of that. Going the route of a permanent employee, we gain one body in lieu of dynamic landscaping and whatever their team and whatever their manpower looks like. We're gaining one human, not necessarily whatever team that comes with that work that comes with it. So two staff as opposed to those two groups coming together to form and be able to have manpower to do more. So I'm definitely of the integrated contract method, so you have more manpower based on what you're spending.
With the committee.
People power, human power.
Councilor Cashel?
Yeah, thank you for the chair. Just to touch on what Councilor Benson brought up concerning CDS. We're gonna be looking at the CDS arrangement. I think that's come up in previous council. In principle, would not want to lose that that relationship we have with CDS. I personally, I support, you know, our city funding that, again, with transparency and accountability and proper contracts, which I think we've talked about. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to, and that's one other reason, if I can just throw it in the mix, of why I don't support the hiring of the two persons for $221,000, which is about a 1.5 interest rate hike in our taxes.
Mhm.
Well, we did a 4%, and I had people coming out of the blue, and then we lowered it to 3.5, and they thought we were heroes. So I just think we need to be cognizant of that labor cost.
Yeah, and again, one just has to be careful, because in the same way, and Councilor Hanson spoke about that, if you're not having an MD at $133,000, that work is now being done by these employees. So it's again, too, it's a bit of a trade. And again, if you've got some of that CIB funding that's gone towards that, and now there's dedicated people that are responsible for those pieces, and that's why we tried to, maybe we didn't do a very good job. Councilor Cashel was sort of saying, like, here's sort of the dollars that we're at right now. And here's when we look at the different options, we are close to or a little bit less than what we're spending. So that was part of it as well, not to say, oh, by the way, you're gonna have this expense, and on top of that, it was about how do we do this differently and not have a, you know, 1.5% tax increase for this. That was the goal there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mr. McCarr, but again, just to reiterate, I don't want to jeopardize our relationship with CDS, folks that they employ.
Can I just clarify on that? Sorry, through the chair. So, the primary crux of CDS's work is within the April through October months. That's when they have full-time teams doing the sweeping downtown and the roving crew that does a lot of weed whacking and stuff. That's not what is being talked about in this report.
Okay.
It is merely the winter, which they don't have a standing crew. They only mobilize on 2-inch snowfalls. But if they don't get the snow, or if they don't get the crew, the city is at risk of a trip and fall not being done in a timely manner because they don't have the crew and we don't have the staff to attend those things. So for instance, Glover Road, the sidewalk, our equipment does not fit, our sidewalk trackless snow blower doesn't fit on that piece of infrastructure. So that is done by hand. That has been allocated to CDS. It's quite an important walkway. If that gets missed a day, as Mr. McClure noted, that freezes, that now we're way behind and we have to spend and throw a lot more labor at that to try and break that up. So this would just provide some flexibility of those two permanent staff members would attend to those right away. So just to clarify.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Marty. Appreciate that clarity.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments before we move to the recommendations? Councillor Hanson.
Sorry, just thank you through the chair, some clarification. So the first is voting on which recommendation, and then the second part, we are then looking through recommendations from the select committee is the next step.
So there's three recommendations there. So I think you would start with the first one. Does council want this to move to a beautification? Was a sample in terms of reference, sort of giving.
So we then do terms of reference separately.
Well, yeah, we would, part of it is just, does council want to do that? And again, if they're like, yes, then we need to work on the terms of reference to see whether or not they're acceptable or what additions or deletions we want. So that's kind of like one piece by itself, as much as the other one is like, okay, we want integrated, we want seasonal, we want full time. And again, and the next one is, you know, do we want to engage a third party?
Thank you.
Three different questions. for
Thank you.
Opportunity.
Okay, so the first recommendation, I will read that out, is that council directs staff to bring back the beautification committee terms of reference to the next regular council meeting, incorporating any recommended amendments. Councillor Hanson and Councillor Butler, thank you. All those in favor? Was carried. Was there anyone that didn't vote there? Sorry if I missed you. Everybody was in favor? Okay, thank you. The next recommendation is that council authorize staff to develop 2 permanent full-time job descriptions addressing the identified staffing needs and proceed with hiring in accordance with the collective agreement. Is there anyone that wants to make that motion?
I'll make the motion so we can vote on it.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Support that motion. And I'll have that noted in the minutes, please. All those opposed? Was carried. The next recommendation is that council authorize staff to engage on a qualified third-party consultant to create a comprehensive flower bed transition plan up to $10,000 that includes proposed bed amalgamation, plant selection, water conservation, and ecological sustainability. Thank you. All those in favor? That was carried. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to.
Question of clarity, for the sake of the senior here at the table. We've got 3 options. When do we address those 3 options?
Well, I would think now, so we sort of, you kind of take 2 of the 3, or kind of, now you're talking about the 3 options about how do we proceed as far as integrated contract,
Yes.
seasonal and that. And again, right now, we've said not the full-time employee.
Right.
So you're down to 2. You
So
said
can we make a, can I-
Absolutely,
Yeah.
please, I'm hoping that that would be.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McClure.
2.
So, Councilor
Yeah.
Martin. Oh, sorry. Did you remember?
I was gonna make the motion
Okay.
to move towards the select committee integrated contract.
just integrated contract on this for the language, just because the select committee has now been carried.
Yeah.
So it would just be,
I don't know how.
no, that's okay.
Second that.
So would the motion be to for staff to develop a terms of reference for an integrated contract?
Yeah, to develop a scope for us integrated contract combining
Combining
existing flower beds. And associated infrastructures. Services.
Can we just say what was on the
Yeah.
recommendation, the
Yeah.
CIB, MI, and
MB.
who's MB?
They're a firm out of Nelson.
Oh.
They've been, yeah, they've held that contract since 1996.
Staff to develop a scope for an integrated contract combining existing CIB, MB landscaping and.
That's good, CIB, MB landscaping contracts. That would give us enough, I think, to.
Yeah, we could, let me say MB contracts and CIB, scope.
And CIB
yeah,
scope,
yeah.
okay.
Say CIB, also doing business as Rachel Brown Contracting, I think that's important for clarity, because a lot of the work that we're seeing done is actually Rachel Brown Contracting, not Communities in Bloom. And I know they're connected, but it's a hybrid model, so for me,
Yeah.
for clarity,
I say CIB scope and then bracket.
I would just say scope, because the
Rachel.
city is funding CIB, not necessarily that contract.
she's indirectly though a contractor hired by the city through CIB.
How about, staff to, motion for staff to develop a scope for an integrated contract combining existing MB landscaping contract and CIB scope brackets, Rachel Brown contracted.
Thank you, Councilor Benson.
That, okay?
Okay, do you want to read that motion again?
Yes, yes, I would.
Just for clarification,
Well,
thank
know
you.
what, yeah. Recommendation that council or that council direct staff to develop a scope for an integrated contract, comma, combining existing MB landscaping contract and CIB scope brackets. C Rachel Brown contracted.
And I wouldn't put a budget amount in this, because we will have to go to the open market and see what that returns at, so it could be. We have a baseline right now of what that looks like, it's at 278,000, but we won't know until that contract is awarded.
And just for additional clarity, but that contract will be awarded after we do the qualified third-party consultant evaluation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so there'll be a bit of it, because, yeah, the difficulty with that, if you award a contract based on a certain scope right now, it'll be hard to reduce that within the terms of the scope unless we made provisions in there. So ideally, we would have some kind of amalgamation plan that we could work through as part of the scope.
Should we add that to that, utilizing the flower bed transition plan?
No, because the scope is just going to be, it's gonna have to be completed or at a certain point, that when that contract is put out for public tender, that would form part of the scope. So ideally, we would say, for instance, 115 beds might be reduced because of amalgamating 3 beds into 1.
Gotcha.
Not in general size, but
Gotcha.
vicinity.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there someone that wants to make that motion? Thank you, Council Benson. All those in favor? And that was carried. Thank you.
Thanks for working through that, Council.
Yeah, I appreciate the report, Mr. McCook. Can I raise one other concern? And I don't know whether it's appropriate to do so, but there is outstanding orders, I believe, that Rachel Brown has put in, or Communities in Bloom / Rachel Brown Contracting has put in. Do we need to make any kind of recommendation to staff on how to address those outstanding orders, so we have continuity of the product, and what's gonna happen with those flowers if we don't?
Yes,
purchase them?
through the chair.
Sure.
We've had some brief discussions on that, because that was obviously a risk kind of with any of these options. We're not fully there yet, but I think we can, now that we have some direction and we know where we're going, we can at least make that move forward a little bit and have that discussions with Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to move on to our other reports.
One second, I have one.
Okay, we have a soccer college.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have these Selkirk College Digital Fabrication and Design program. And there was this application for a cash grant. Oh. Haley's here.
Hi, everyone.
Haley's here to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions, or do you want to just quickly describe your project?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone. My name's Kaylee. I'm an instructor at Selkirk College and specifically in the digital fabrication and design program that we have right here on the History campus. I'm also a designer, engineer, and a bunch of other things. I've been playing in the public art space. So I'm here because I have a project that I'm proposing to council, which would be, it's called Stacking Lumens. And what it is it's a collaborative student-led art installation, physical, created as part of our program and as part of my curriculum and one of the courses that I'm teaching this term. And so what it is it's it's a modular structure. I actually brought a little prototype here because I like things physical. So we're gonna pass it around. This technology can be pretty abstract. So what that is, that's a 3 components, completely 3D printed out of recycled PETG plastic. And so that's a 50% scale. So it would be about twice as big in every direction. So kind of about this big. Each student would design and 3D print their own design. They all have this common connection system, however, so students are kind of creating this lampshade in between the 2 flanges. And so the idea is that those would stack on top of each other to create this like really unique kind of creative self-expression from students. And I think the whole thing is meant to demonstrate how technology can be decentralized in like rural communities and how like I love the contrast between trails like industrial sort of heritage with like sort of bringing this like new age technology into the landscape and sort of that contrast between the 2. And so the other concept is that it'd be lit up at night as well with solar powered LEDs, so it could be seen at night. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to open up that proposal to questions or concerns.
Hey, Councillor Cashel.
Just one question, just looking at the application process, it says, is the recipient a local nonprofit community organization? Are you a local nonprofit community organization?
Technically Selkirk College is not.
So that would make you ineligible actually for the grant application, with all due respect. And not that I'm against what you're doing, I think it's cool and quite groovy actually, but I just can't support it because I don't think it falls within our mandate to give grant funding to a recipient that is not a local nonprofit community organization. So for that reason, unfortunately, as much as I might like the project, I
Yeah.
don't think it qualifies for grant
Okay.
funding. That's my position, so I won't be supporting it.
Councillor Wilson.
Unlike Council Castro, I will be supporting it because I support students and technology. No, I'm just kidding. My biggest worry with these is.
Yeah.
What happens if they get knocked over, vandalized?
Totally.
Just on the walk over here, I thought of our bench, well, I walked by some of our benches.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna look after that? Is that?
Yeah, so we'll take full responsibility for the maintenance, the installation, and also the disassembly of the structure. I'll be including it as part of the students' duties as part of the project, so we plan to do initially like bi-weekly inspections of the tower. And then we could adjust that as needed. Vandalism is unfortunately like, it's a thing and I think every public art installation is subjected to it in some form or fashion. It's something that might happen. Like we're prepared for that. Thankfully, these structures are pretty low cost. And we'll also keep replacements on hand and they are swappable modules, so we can easily repair them. But we take full responsibility for all the maintenance and cleaning and things like that.
That was the only question I had.
Thank you. Councillor Benson.
Thank you, through the chair. Maybe a question for staff. So I guess when a grant and aid comes in, are these like questions on the back 1 through 5? Like, is it you have to say like yes to all of these, or does the recipient receive this in terms of are they a local nonprofit? Like, is that a game? Is that what's the word? deal breaker if they're not?
No.
Okay.
We've supported
Guidelines.
Selkirk College, you know, sometimes I sometimes wonder about the wording, right? The Selkirk College is not for profit sort of thing. I mean, in most cases, that's what they're just trying to stay within their budget. So
Yeah.
again, as a community organization, and again, I don't have a necessary definition, but we in the past, through this council and others have supported Selkirk College on some of their asks for grant.
Would be a guiding, it would be a guideline. Okay.
Weighed against the.
Thank you. I think this is really neat. I mean, we just worked through our crime prevention through environmental design. With, you know, and part of it is more light, part of it is, lighting things up. So, I mean, I love that you want to build, I think, 6 of these massive, or how many are you building?
So the whole tower would probably be about 7, the single tower would be about 6 to 7 feet tall, and it'd be composed of like 7 or 8 modules. And then I know Colleen had asked me about if we could make more towers, and I think that's totally possible if funding was available. For now, though, we just want to focus on doing a pilot project just to see like how the design performs in the real world, which will be a good learning experience for students anyway. And then we can always tweak the design, and we could potentially look to make more towers in the future.
That's
next
what
one.
I was leading into. Is there an
Yeah.
opportunity? I think the suggested area was maybe gyro, but I just am thinking downtown, gyro, different, you know, areas in our downtown core, just having, you know, we don't have a sculpture walk, you know, like Castlegar does. And this is a really cool thing that we can work and support Selkirk, and the students, as well as have our kind of claim to fame about something, a really cool thing that was developed here, especially with our circular economy and how everything's kind of working its way through here. So I think this is outstanding.
I agree.
If I could, just 2 kind of questions, and hopefully this doesn't seem crass, but do they float?
Actually, they're probably light enough that they would.
Just curious.
Yeah.
And then I was just wondering if you had picked out some,
He's somebody through.
Write that down, if he knows.
I'm just curious if you had kind of thought of a couple of selected locations where you live.
Yeah, so I mean, for the pilot project, because as part of the students' learning experience, we do want them to stick around long enough that we can like observe like how they perform kind of in the environment and in the heat and stuff like that. So we're hoping to put them, or I'm hoping to put them in a place that is maybe less subjected to potentially being taken. So my thought was Gyro Park. I also really like that location because I think in one of the renders I sent you, there's like the tech smokestacks in the background. So I think that it's like quite a cool kind of landscape for that. But at the same time, like in the future, like I think that public art should be accessible to everyone, like regardless of their sort of economic situation. And so I would love to install them in like the trail downtown core. But for this pilot project, I'm hoping to install it maybe a little bit outside of the downtown core, just so we can have it stick around, and so the students can learn from it.
Thank you.
Councilor Pond.
Could it last longer than the 2027?
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Where is the material, if they were sort of very popular, is it something like super around for a while?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident it could. It's like a pretty durable plastic material and it's meant for outdoor use. But that would be a kind of sort of a part of the learning is like, you know, how long can it last kind of thing, but I'm confident that I would be able to stick around until the end of the summer for sure.
Awesome. Okay, any other questions? No? So the recommendation is that the request from Selkirk College, the Digital Fabrication and Design Program for a cash grant in support of the Stacking Lumens project be recommended.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Council Wilson, Council Martin. All those in favor?
Did we set a dollar?
Yeah, we do need to say.
$1 amount?
Yeah.
I think
So we're just doing one, right?
it's 350 first.
$350.
How many would you like to make?
Want to start?
Do you want one to start as a project?
Do you want
We
to
have
make
that
2?
number.
Okay,
Two.
you're 2.
Yeah.
Two equals Avengers.
Okay, 2 for
So
700.
2 for the students? Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
$700.
$100.
$700, okay. So that was carried. Thank you so
I'd
much.
like to be
One opposed.
one post.
Would you like to be recorded?
Yes,
Okay.
Counselor Nicholas Campbell is against all student injustice. Becoming the most hate man in Travis. No, I appreciate your presentation. But we are setting a precedent here, counselors. We are setting a precedent, so be warned, there might be other.
The bus
nonprofits.
driver against all students.
Students coming up.
Point of order, Counselor Cashel. We support the schools with cash grants for scholarships.
That's going to a student, counselor.
This is-
These are going.
Indirectly, it's going into, anyway.
Going towards education.
Thanks,
You won,
Caitlin.
you got your money, and congratulations.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next request. And we have the Greater Trail Minor Hockey Association, a request for rental waiver, and the recommendation is that the request from the Greater Trail Minor Hockey Association for a rental waiver for the fees associated with their use of the ice at the Trail Memorial Center, excuse me, in the 6:30 to 7:30 AM time slot. To someone that makes sense. Thank you. Awesome. Seconder, Counselor Butler, all those in favor? And, the amount,
Yes, I think I provided that.
yes,
Just
it
under
is provided on
$2,000.
the way.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
make sure it's noted in the motion.
so, sorry, can we just redo that quickly? All those in favor? And no opposed. Thank you, that was carried. Is anyone, there's no question period here.
Yeah, we do have question period,
Is there anyone on?
we have 3 attendees online. If anyone would like to ask a question, well, now would be your time, and we would ask that you would raise your hand to the Zoom platform. Not visually, but you Zoom option. Not seeing anything.
Thank you. Okay, so, the next item is a resolution to rise from the committee of the whole. Thank you, that was moved and seconded, all those in favor, thank you, that was carried. So the next is that pursuant to section 90 of the community charter, the public be excluded from this portion of the meeting. As the subject matter being considered relates to the following. The community charter, section 91B, personal information about an identifiable individual who is being considered for municipal honor. The community charter, section 91E, the acquisition of disposition of expropriation of land or improvements. Community charter, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service. The community charter, section 91L, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives. And further, that the public portion of the meeting be recessed until 6:00 PM. And further, that council immediately resolve into the closed portion of their meeting. Is there someone to thank you? And all those in favor? That was carried. Thank you.
Through the chair, can I be excused for a quick break?
Sure.
Excuse me.
Little,
We off. No, so.
If we're off yet.